Easy Tigers! I hope everyone's fine and dandy. First things first, as always, just want to show love to the people that have supported me and showing me love on Patreon and PayPal. It's thanks to you guys I get to go out and explore these sites. Thank you very much. I appreciate every single one of you. So don't forget to like, subscribe, comment and share. And if you do feel generous or you want to donate or anything like that, I'll leave the links in the description. DIY electricity at home.
Wait, why ain't you subscribed yet?
Right, so I hope everyone's fine and dandy. So we all know about electricity and static electricity and generators and Leyden jars. What I'm going to do today is just zoom in a little bit more, just so we've got a crystal clear understanding of why I'm with these devices, you know. So it's all based around this book that I come across. And in this book, it's just full of golden nuggets. I can't believe it. 1857, and they're doing experiments. I was saying this is a kid's book, but to me, this is a teenager book, and it's just full of experiments to do with galvanisation, magnetism, electricity, and it's going to knock your socks off. So out of this, I decided to make my own Leyden jar. I've done the jar. I'm just going to make my Wimshurst generator so I can get the static from that. But anyway, I'm going to read you a few bits from this and then we're going to look at Leyden jars and what they powered and bits and pieces. And the other great thing about this book is it's just got so much stuff in it. Do you know, back then they called it electricity fluid. Very interesting, hey? So this is the Wimshurst generator. I keep going to call it Wim Hof, but it's the Wimshurst generator. I mean, pause and read this, like, you're more than welcome. I'm even going to put a link to this book after, so people doing their own research can make videos on it. So this is what I made here. I made that, and I'm going to be making the generator underneath. So like I said, we all know about the Leyden jars. So we all know they held static electricity. How did the electricity get in there? And what were they using the electricity for? These are the questions that I was asking. And this is what we're going to work out by the end of this video. So it goes to say the plate electrical machine, formerly the electrical machine was made in the form of a cylinder, but now it consists of a plate. As seen in the engraving, the plate is turned by the handle through the rubber, which diffuses the excitement over the glass. The points or balls at each side of the plate carry off a constant stream of positive electricity to the prime conductor. And the prime conductor is literally a knob that sits at the top of it. And this is my own research now. And that prime conductor is where you transfer the power from that to the Leyden jars. Right, I'll just throw that one in there so you know. So negative electricity is generated by insulating the conductor to which the cushion is attached and continuing the prime conductor with the ground, so as to carry off the fluid collected from the plate. See what I mean? Fluid, electric fluid, current, flow. See, just that on its own is very interesting. But then it goes to show you other little experiments about getting electrical sparks from the nose and things like that. And then it moves on to the Leyden jar. So let's have a little look at this. So, how to get a jar full of electricity. A most useful piece of electrical apparatus is called the Leyden jar, here represented. It is employed for the purpose of obtaining a quantity of electricity, which may be applied to any substance. It consists of a glass jar coated both inside and without, 4/5 of the way up with tin foil. A knob rises through the wooden top, communicating with the inside of the jar. When it is wished to charge the jar, this knob is applied to the prime conductor of the electrical machine when in action, and a quantity of electricity being given off. The jar will remain charged with it until the connection is made by some good conductor of electricity. Between the knob and the outside tin foil, a piece of brass chain must hang from the stem that carries the knob and connect it with the interior of the jar. You must be having a bubble bath. I'm telling you right now, 270 years ago, you're making electricity at home out of tin foil, wood and glass, and then you're storing it in jars. Where did it go wrong? What happened? Now, if we want power, we have to go and pay for it off the national grid. Like, it's not free, it's not cheap. And another thing is, it's very dangerous, the electricity we've got now, and we have been fed through TV, schools, and all the programming and subliminal programming not to go near electricity. The electrical battery. If several of these jars be united, an enormous quantity of electricity can be collected. But in arranging them, all the interior coating must be made to communicate by metallic rod, and a similar union must be effected among the exterior coatings. When thus arranged, the whole series may be charged as if they formed but one jar. It's just like a capacitor. It's exactly what they are. Batteries and capacitors, the same thing. For the purpose of making a direct communication between the inner or outer coatings of a jar or battery, by which a discharge is effected, an instrument called a discharge rod is employed. It consists of two bent metallic rods terminating at one end by brass balls and connected at another by a joint which is fixed to the end of the glass handle, and which, acting like a pair of compasses, allows the ball, being separate at certain distances, when opened to the proper degree, one of the balls is made to touch the exterior, causing it to discharge. I know I've said it before, but we're talking 270 years ago, and they're generating power, electricity at home, and they're discharging it. Now we want to look at what were they powering. But before we do that, I just want to look at some other sources of these Leyden jars, just so we can tally them up and see if they're matching. So this was a book from 1857. Now we're going to look at some modern stuff and see what they say about these jars. In 1745, a cheap and convenient source of electric spark was invented by Pieter van Musschenbroek, a physicist and mathematician in Leyden. That's where you get the name from, Leyden jars. Later called the Leyden jar, there you go. The Leyden jar is a simple device that stores static electricity in large amounts. It was the original form of the capacitor. The Leyden jar was used to conduct many early experiments in electricity, and its discovery was of fundamental importance to the study of electricity. Previous research has... I just want to jump in here a minute. What about the Baghdad battery, the Egyptian Baghdad battery? This is identical, same layout, same setup, same thing. Anyway, previously researchers had to resort to insulated conductors of large dimensions to store charge. The Leyden jar provided a much more compact alternative. The Leyden jar is a higher voltage device. It is estimated that a maximum the early Leyden jars could be charged to 20,000 to 60,000 volts. The centre rod electrode has a metal ball at the end to prevent leakage of the charge into the air by corona discharge. Right, so I've definitely bored you with that little cupcake of knowledge, and it was just a condensed little version of that book in that particular subject. So I just wanted to get that through so you can understand that. So now you know that the Leyden jars were powered by the generators that you'd wind up. So you'd wind them up, generate a bit of static electricity, and that gets stored in the jars. You then store the jars, and when you want to use that electricity for something, you then connect the communicator to it and draw the power out of it that way. And if you didn't want to use it, there is a little device that you can just discharge the power or the electricity with, just by turning the knob, and it makes a connection and discharges it, which makes it safe. So let's look at these pictures that we've got hold of these ends. So you've got like 6 jars, you've got the balls on the top, and like the one I showed you at the start, these metal rods going down will have a chain touching the tin foil in the jar. Now you can charge one, or you can charge all of them, but you can only charge all of them if they're all connected in a series. So this would be a big one. Now I'm going to show you a static generator in a minute. That's in a museum, and it's incredible. It's mad. It's mad. So if they were doing this 270 years ago, how did they get to that point? Like, what did they discover before? I don't even believe they discovered this. This is just a little story, a little narrative that we get fed. Electricity is part of nature. It's been around since day one. Right, so we looked at Leyden jars, we looked at how to store the electricity inside them, and we've looked at how to make them in 1857. Now let's look at what supplied the power to these devices. Let's zoom in and have a look. So again, you've got another static generator here, and you have plates that spin round, and you can see there's a series of Leyden jars at the bottom. So this would, if you do the mathematics, this would produce a heck of a lot, or sorry, store a heck of a lot of electricity. Now this is one that's in a museum, and when you look at, like, I do a lot of research on old stuff in old buildings, especially urbexes like in France and things like that. You see some of these devices, and another person, Campbell on Autodidactic, done a wicked show about a year and a half ago on like old well tech left in the house. I couldn't believe it. And this is the stuff. Look how it's just made out of like basic stuff. But here you go. You can see the glass, and then you can see the Leyden jars. So it's mental, isn't it? Free energy, literally from the ether, static electricity. You wind up the Wimshurst, and then connect that prime conductor to the terminal at the top of the jars here, and store the electricity inside. But like I said earlier, the question is, what were they powering with these devices? What do you think they were powering? It actually took me about 2 weeks to find out. That's why it took me so long to make this video, because I thought, well, hang on a minute. You're sitting there generating all this power and storing it, but for what? Now the narrative says it's purely just for electrical experiments, but I found other stuff. I found in this book, I found that you can play games with it. You can do kids experiments with it. I'll show you all this stuff. But here, I love pictures like this as well, because it just shows you all the old world tech. And really, how long has this been about? Really, come on. It's incredible, isn't it? Static generators, Leyden jars, look at all this. I mean, what's this little gadget here? And another thing is, I'll get to that later. Just wait for the Brucey bonus, trust me. Right, so let's have a look. What were they using these Leyden jars from, apart from electrical experiments? Let's have a look. So the Sportsman was one of the things you could do with this. Now this apparatus is capable of affording much amusement. And it says the letter A is a stand of wood, B is a common Leyden jar, out of which proceeds the wires HH, one terminating in ball F, the other in the ball D, to which are attached a number of piff birds. Piff, that's something else to me, that means something else. By silken strings, E is a shelf for the birds to rest upon, C is the sportsman, G is his gun. So basically this is like a duck hunt game, do you know what I mean? But with the Leyden jars. So to put this operation in motion, the Leyden jar is to be charged with electricity by affixing a chain to the bottom part of it and connecting it with the electrical machine in the usual manner. So how you'd normally collect the energy or the power, do that, alright? Or by applying it to the prime conductor, which we explained earlier. When the birds fly off the knob to which they are fixed, in consequence of them being repelled, sportsman and the gun be then turned so that the end of his gun shall touch the knob F. The electrical spark will pass from one to the other. A report will be heard and the birds will fall down as if shot, in consequence of the electricity having been taken from the Leyden jar. There should be a communication between the sportsman and the jar, formed of tin foil or some metal to show that the dotted line on the stand. Such are few of many experiments which are made by this young experimenter, who is fond of science and any ingenuity, but should he possess little love of research, no ingenuity, and would like to amuse himself with an electrified machine of little cost. So it's incredible really that we've got pretty much a shooting game. Like, I remember a game like this on the computer when I had a little gun when I was a kid and I'd be shooting the ducks on the telly. This is an earlier version of that, like 250 years ago, you know, this is or 270 years ago. But let's have another look, another little toy or an experiment I used to do. So this one is called the imitation of thunderclouds, and is to show the manner in which thunderclouds perform their operation in the air. AA is a wooden stand on which are erected up 2 uprights. BB. CC are 2 small pulleys over which the silken cord can pull easily. E is another silken lino stretched across from one upright to another. On these silken cords, 2 pieces of thin cardboard covered with tin foil and cut as to represent clouds are to be fixed horizontal. Right, so did you get what's going on here so far? So they're making up a little knock-up like scene of clouds, and the Leyden jar is connected to and made to communicate by means of thin wires F and G. One will go inside and the other will go outside of a charged jar, D. Now by pulling the loop of the silk line E, cloud 1 will be brought to cloud 2. Continue this slowly until the clouds, which are furnished with 2 small brass balls, are within an inch of each other. When a beautiful flash strongly represents lightning in miniature will pass from one cloud to the other cloud, restoring electrical equilibrium. So kids were making this stuff, like, this is a sort of thing, you wouldn't even make this at school now, do you know what I mean? What is going on here, eh? So there you go. There's a lot of toys and experiments done with these. But let's have a look at this guy as well. I don't want to go too much into him. I just want to touch him. But this Gustavo guy, this guy was bringing back to life animals and body parts with the electricity in the 1700s. You know, we have been seriously dumbed down through schools and TV and stuff like that. So this is the guy. And another thing this guy was famous for was actually showing people flu at the time, and he is the one that actually showed people on the microscope what flu looked like, basically. So that's why he got famous. And obviously I'm showing you now the electrical experiments he done when he started making frogs' legs move. And let's not forget, you've got the pretty famous Frankenstein. That I think that was based on this guy as well. You know, brought back to life by electricity. But you've got the Leyden jars here, you've got body parts, you've got all sorts of stuff going on. I think there's even another image where he's collecting, let's see, you've got heads here. Like, God knows what is going on here, eh? But I've got another image where he's collecting energy, here we go, from a rod, a lightning rod. And he's making a circuit here, and you can clearly see it is to put power in this to make legs move. And again, like I said a minute ago, you've got the Frankenstein. So it's interesting times, hey? Very, very interesting times. And don't forget, I did do a video about a year ago on electrical medicine as well. So there's some serious stuff going on with electricity, and like I mentioned before, we've been made to be scared of it, so we don't go near it. And if you want it, you've got to buy it off the governments. Anyway. Quickly before we have a Brucey bonus, I just want to share this with you, and it goes to say the connection between electricity and the atmosphere was not drawn definitively until the 18th century, so that's the 1700s. The iconic image of Benjamin Franklin flying his kite in an electrical storm highlights his role as a pioneer in the discovery of atmospheric electricity and the nature of lightning. In his experiments and observations on electricity, Franklin describes his kite experiment, discusses his work with the Leyden jars, and expresses his idea for the lightning rod. The Vale collection has early translations of this seminal work in French and German. Franklin's invention and advocacy of the lightning rod brought huge benefits to society, as it offered protection from one of nature's most destructive and unpredictable forces. The technology also allowed people to erect tall buildings and build structures on flat open plains, with less fear of the devastation wrought by lightning. In 1874, Italian scientist Marsilio Landriani published an inventory of the lightning rods on private and public buildings in Italy and Europe, including the crucially important rods situated on powder magazines. Obviously, you don't want lightning to hit a magazine, it'll just blow the place up, won't it? But another thing, I'll get to that in a second. Now this is where it gets very juicy, because having witnessed the effectiveness of the technology against lightning, farmers sought a solution to the destructive effects of hail, which is like hailstones from the sky. A device called the paragly in English, as well as in the original French, was invented by Alexandre l'Apostle around 1820 and described in the book blah blah blah, a bit of a long name. John Murray cites the device in his 1830s, a treatise on atmospherical electricity. That's in 1830, man. It's like 200 years old nearly. It's crazy, isn't it? And like, we're told this stuff never can't exist and don't exist. Yet a guy bought a book out 200 years ago, I digress, and makes the mistaken assertion that the paragly is intended to disarm the storm clouds of its vengeance by withdrawing its electricity, thus preventing precipitation of hailstones. The formation of hail is an electrical phenomenon. Wonderful though it sounds, the invention unsurprisingly did not work, since the hail is caused by thunderstorms with strong updrafts and unstable air mass rather than by electricity. Don't know about that. So let's just have a quick recap, because there's been quite a lot of information in this little cupcake of knowledge. So what we've discovered today, or not discovered, we've solidified that we understand how power gets into the Leyden jars. We understand what the Leyden jars were used for, how much charge they had, what games you could play with them. Also looked at what experiments can be done with them, and a little bit of the BS timeline where electricity comes from. This stuff's been around from day one. Now just look at these photos and tell me if these are not electrical components or anything to do with what we've been talking about right now. I mean, this looks very suspect, doesn't it? Very, very suspect. But there's a few pictures. I mean, look, what's going on with this? You know, what is going on with this? It's very strange stuff. It's like they're holding a massive light bulb or something like that. And like there's a cable coming from a box underneath it as well. And they're giant and don't look human, by the way. Let me just say that. The humans look like they're holding up the tube or the bulb or whatever it is. I don't know what it is. But it's very peculiar. It does look like an electrical gadget or something like that. So it does look like a light bulb. I mean, look, there's a cable going to this box. And these two little cats, I call them cats, I call people cats, but these two people are holding it up, and that's clearly some sort of giant. And what is inside that? Is that a filament, or is it a snake, or what? But my point is, these are quite old in the pyramids. We don't even got a date to them, but it's very old, but they are depicting electrical stuff on the walls. And even, you know, we've got all sorts of stuff. We've got spaceships, helicopters, tanks, and especially on the top, not the one that highlighted on the left, these look like a load of electrical devices with communicators on the top that you connect to. God. We'll work it out. We'll get there one day. Hopefully it's soon. But anyway, I've probably bored the socks off you guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share and all that jazz. And don't forget, YouTube's messing around with it at the minute. They've demonetised about 5 of my videos. The views, the numbers, all that's all messed up. So make sure, and another thing is that they're unsubscribing people. So make sure you subscribe to both channels and the Telegram group. It's the only way you can contact me directly. If you want something to share with me, do it on there. Let's have a Brucey bonus. Let's spruce up for Bruce up. Right, I've mentioned this a few times now because I'm getting on to something serious and it's getting close. Like I said, I've got an open file on my laptop and I've been collating evidence and stuff of churches, and they were not religiously purposed. They didn't have look at it, it's got nothing religious on it at all whatsoever. The only thing religious on it is the stained glass windows that could be added at any time, or there might be a bit of geopolymer with a date on it saying 1881 or something like that. But the tech's been dismantled. And another thing is, it's going to knock your socks off. It's a Star of David. That is meant to be a Jewish symbol in the world we live in today. Alright? But this is not a Jewish symbol, and I'm going to show you what that actually means. I'm not saying it's not a Jewish symbol, but I'm saying another meaning for it. Because this is meant to be a Catholic or a Christian church, and you're not going to have a Jewish symbol. And I found it on a few churches in Southend now. And then it all made sense. This has been derelict for a long time, and I've been trying to get into it for years, but you can't get inside it. And I will show you. It's very peculiar. It's got all these patterns on the side. Like here you can see it's like you've got a cross made of 4. I'll get to that in a minute, alright? I'll get to that in a minute. But I managed to look underground, poke my head underground on this little green thing here. I lifted this flap up and went underground a little bit, and I'll show you what I found. It's very interesting stuff. Now I'm telling you, just my opinion, these were water stations or water power stations. Look, so here you got 5-pointed star, here you got the 4-pointed star. So I wonder if that means anything. And then at the top you got a 6-pointed star, which is the Star of David. But I also wanted to look at what the Star of David meant. And you are not going to believe it. You're not going to believe it. So the Star of David is actually a symbol of water and fire put together. Which is ironic, because I'm sitting there saying that these churches are water stations. Now, to back that up, I've been in a local church where I live now. Can you see the Star of David? Which is actually a symbol of fire and water together. Alright, so what is this place? Why is there a chimney in the middle of this church? Fire. Why is there water, which I'm going to show you underneath, pipework coming from underneath? Water. There's nothing on this church that represents anything to do with Christianity or Catholic or religious stuff whatsoever. Now, like I said, I went to another local church of mine and I buttered them up, and they let me basically go into the crypt. And when I was down there, it was just a plant room. It weren't a crypt, it was an old world plant room. It had a dynamo down there. I'm going to put it in the bonus to the next video. It's going to knock your socks off. There's me at the motor. So it's just incredible, isn't it, really? And another thing, let me just point one thing. I'm not saying every church. Now, it's I call them blue stone churches, but they're grey stone churches. They're the ones that have water. They're the ones that had the Jewish symbols on it, and they've got nothing religious written on them. And some of them have got like these like scary faces around them as well. Here we go. Water power station. Modern alchemy, the hexagram. Let's go. Right, to begin with, this is not the Star of David. Many people will see this in alchemy and think that the hexagram is used to represent all 4 of the basic elements: water, fire, earth and air. The hexagram is the best used in arrays that deal with a wide range of transmutable material. So this is why we're seeing what we call Jewish symbols all over Christian and Catholic churches, because these were power stations and they would generate water, heating, electricity, maybe for people in the area, or people went to them to collect that. Who knows? This is what we're working out. But what I do know is it's not a Jewish symbol. It originally just means the 4 elements of the earth, and this is where you go to get that. So I managed to look underneath here and have a little look, because obviously I can't not have a look, you know. And as you can see, it's quite flooded down there, and there's pipes right at the background. Now these pipes are at least 4 inches thick, and let me tell you something about them. They're not coming from above, they're coming from below, they're coming from underground, because you can see you've got the 2 90-degree bends in there. This is a little valve. I don't know what this could be for. Maybe this is a supply for the church, because that's about 2 inches thick, that pipe. That's sufficient for that church. You don't need 4-inch pipes to feed a church. Maybe a street, yes, but not a church. So in my head there's alarm bells. Why is there pipe work underneath the church again? And let me just show you. This green pipe here is 2 inches. This green pipe is something like, basically me and my mate had to go and redo a job that the Maltese government done, which was a meter setup. So this is what we've done in the end. But let me just show you. That green pipe is 2 inches thick, and that fed 20 apartments. Yeah, do you get me? This pipe that my arm is 4 inch. That fed heating system of 100 apartments. Do you get me? I'm just showing you so you see the size of the pipe work and what it's fit for. See, this is the pipe work under there is too big for a church. Far too big. Now again, pump sets in the background. That's for St Bart's Hospital, and that's on a heating system. Now that pipe work is 6 inch. Let me just show you how big the hospital is. It's ginormous. Like, the pipework has to be sufficient. You're not going to make it too big or make it too small. It has to be exactly the right size for what it's being used for. This is St Bart's Hospital. Now you can see the pump sets for 6 inch pipe that run around the whole of the hospital to feed this massive block of a hospital. So this pipe here, what's that feeding? Is that feeding the road? I don't know. Help me out. I'm lost. baffled. But what this is doing is backing up my theory that these grey stone churches were power stations, and I think the red churches were old healing centres, living ones where you go, like monasteries and things like that. I'm building up all the evidence, and I'm going to present it when it gets good enough, when the folder gets big enough. But so far I've got this, and I went to another church earlier, and I've got that information, same as this. They've got all the pipework underground. So these were old stations generating power or water or electricity. So 2 out of 2 churches that I've gone to that are grey stone do have pipework underneath, big enough to supply a street. I digress. We're onto something. I'm onto something massive. It's brilliant. Don't forget to join my Telegram group as well. So if you've come across anything like this, you can send it to me and I'll get it instantly. And that's probably the only place I'm going to reply to you as well, because there's a lot of horrible people on YouTube in a minute and I'm just avoiding all that stuff. Comment, I'll scan the comments, but it'll all be on Telegram. So don't forget to like, subscribe, comment and share and all that jazz. And one love, guys. Ta-da. Ta-da.